Peace. Peace. Welcome. I'm Peter Panagore. Hi, my friends, and welcome to Not Church. Profound mysticism, ancient and modern, East and West, through the lens of near-death experience. And 4 decades of Kriya Yoga practice, starting with centering prayer back in 1977. Consistent practice over time trains the brain and opens the heart. Just works that way. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Hi, Ollie. Hey, Daryl. Hi, everybody. I said hi to before by typing. It says near-death experiencers, NDErs, and those of us who've had transformative experiences, STEs, or out-of-body, OBEs, or Kundalini experiencers, we often experience these profound changes that affect us physically and spiritually, psychologically, and socially. This series that we've been running for the past several weeks explores the consequential psychological, spiritual, and physical aspects of our lives, and is for non-NDErs to gain understanding, but also for all of us to understand ourselves and ourselves in community and collective, because we all have these overlapping after effects, after gifts, symptoms that, well, they change us and they put a strain on our relationships. And today we're going to focus on how these transformative experiences reshape our social relationships, meaning how we disrupt or lose our marriages, friends, family, and community relationships. We near-death experiencers undergo radical transformations, and these transformations affect every part of our lives, including our closest relationships. Today, we'll specifically discuss how NDEs impact our relationships. It's the last of the series today. We have one more next week. It's the last of, that's kind of a summary next week. So whether our friendships, marriages, or broader social interactions, doesn't matter what they are, NDEs profoundly shift how we connect with others because it shifts how we understand ourselves. I thank the International Association for Near-Death Studies at iands.org, IANDS.org, for their foundational research for this series. So, relationships in 4 parts. Number 1. Changes in social relationships and activities. We NDEers often feel that our social priorities shift dramatically after our experiences. They do shift. Mine shifted. Superficial social interactions no longer hold the same value as we gravitate toward more meaningful and genuine, authentic connections. This desire for authenticity can lead us to reshape or even abandon old friendships that no longer serve our deeper sense of purpose, or those people abandon us. Happens pretty often as soon as we open our mouths and start talking about what happened and how we've changed. But we're drawn to relationships that reflect our new spiritual and emotional depth, seeking out individuals who understand the value of compassion, kindness, and love. It's a definite yes for me. How about, is this true for you? Yes or no? Number 1. Number 2, strained relationships and divorce. Yeah, so on the minus side, the high potential for divorce is one of the most challenging after effects of NDEs. The number hovers somewhere around 70%. And I'm sure in the NDE community, it's either you or somebody you know. When we return from these experiences, we often find ourselves drastically changed, no longer interested in many of the things we once were, such as money, or success. This shift creates tension between partners, especially if one partner has not had a similar experience, such as an STE, which is often the case. The disparity between worldviews causes emotional distance, misunderstandings, and even separation. This challenge is widespread when one partner focuses on spiritual growth while the other may be more grounded in material or practical concerns. Did your STE or NDE impact your marriage? Did it strain your friendships or family systems? That's a yes for me with family and friends. Now, I got married 38 years ago, 5 years after my first NDE. But my NDE has been a strain on our marriage. But we're still together. NDEs strain relationships sometimes. Definitely sometimes. So 3. On the plus side, positives and negatives on the plus side, we develop a capacity for deeper connections. Despite our troubles, many of us report our enhanced ability to form deeper, more meaningful connections with others. This is one of the most beautiful gifts of NDE. There's a profound capacity for unconditional love, empathy, and understanding. We see beyond the surface level interactions and connect with people on a soul energy level. These deep connections can create new and more fulfilling relationships and even help us heal old wounds with family or friends. It's a yes for me. Do you feel me? Is it a yes for you? 4. Changes in vocation towards service. After a near-death experience, many of us feel called to change our careers or vocations. I'm thinking of one guy right now. I did, and I wasn't thinking of me, but I did, seeking new paths that align with our new purpose in life. A purpose we may not even be able to understand, but we know and we feel because we're living in it. Many of us are drawn to service-oriented professions, whether helping others through counseling, teaching, healthcare, public service, or volunteer work. This shift in vocation isn't about financial gain, obviously, but it's about contributing to the greater good and fulfilling a sense of divine purpose. By doing work that serves others, we can integrate our NDE lessons into our daily lives and continue growing spiritually. And we bring heaven to people and to ourselves in the here and now as we serve others. And in the East, Bhagavad Gita, it's called karma yoga and leads to enlightenment. Service to others is without expectation of reward or result. It's not transactional. A practice of kindness in the daily life. It's a prayer of action that decreases self-attachment. By sharing these significant, transformative experience after effects from this whole series and the changes, I hope to foster a greater understanding of how profoundly NDEs and SDEs shape not only us, but our interactions with the world and the people we love. I encourage you to reflect on how your relationships may have changed post-NDE and STE, and how we can build communities that honor these shifts. Now, we'll conclude this series next week by looking at a groundbreaking study from the University of Virginia's School of Medicine, which delves into the psychological and neurological impacts of out-of-body experiences, OBEs, particularly their ability to enhance empathy, and emotional connection. It's published in the Neuroscience and Behavioral Reviews. We'll cover that next week, and we'll end our series. And if you'd like to learn more or talk to me directly, I'm available. Please visit peterpanagore.love, www.peterpanagore.love. Thank you for being here and for supporting Not Church. Peace. So I want to tell you a little story now that I've gotten through my prepared remarks. Because yesterday I had to go to the post office in town and ship a package. And as I pulled into the parking lot of our town post office, another car pulled in just before me. And out of the car got an older fellow with a cane and an older woman with a mask and a younger woman. And I stopped because they were to my right and I was headed to the right as I was walking. So I stopped and I let them all go by because they were a group and they were aiming for something. And I followed them in to the post office. And in the ante area of the ante room of the post office, where all the little boxes are, there was the dad. I think he was the dad. Was kind of talking loudly and taking up space, and the daughter was behind him, and I could feel her nervousness, and I could feel his distress. There was like a radiant form of emotional disruption that was filling me. And so I looked ahead to there was a door between a glass door between us and where the service people are at the post office, the desk, the front counter. And in there were a couple of guys. One guy was taking up one of the stations, and the other guy who had a big box, and he was bent over, and there wasn't a lot of space in this area. And the young woman invited me to precede them. But I could sense, I could feel that the old man on the cane was somehow uh, determined, but in in an interiorly disruptive way. That it wasn't bad. It was just I could just tell that I needed to totally back off and wait. And I stepped back and I said, "No, please, you." And she started to insist. And I was like, "No, I'm just going to wait here." And I sat inside the center of myself. And they went in through the door. And I stayed outside because there was no room for me in there. So I'm standing outside the door, and the woman looked back over my shoulder, and I when the man with the box moved up to the front counter and did his thing, that I was able to move into this space. And then there was this interaction about change of address card, and the dad or the granddad told the young woman to go out and get a card, and kind of was very. It was just this radiance of like it was jangly. It was the whole thing was feeling jangly and prickly, and so she left the space, and then he went up to the front counter and asked for a card, and she came back in, and the woman behind the counter asked them whether they would do this electronically, and the guy said, "No, no, 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 not." And the young woman had to like placate the situation. Why am I telling you this? It's not about the people who came in. Although when it was all over and I left, the young woman gave me this nod, like she saw what I was doing. I was doing what I was doing. I was giving them plenty of space because of what I was empathetically feeling from them. I walked into the post office, and there was this energy of uh, that I didn't want to get in the middle of, for one thing, but I also wanted to give them space. I could tell that they needed emotional, psychological space. And so I kind of blocked people from not like madly, but I just kind of stood in the way a little bit and let them deal what they needed to deal with. And as I left, the I could tell that the young woman could see that I had perceived their emotional distress. And the reason why I could see and perceive their emotional distress is because it was brilliantly apparent to me. It wasn't like I was struggling to figure this thing out. There are after effects that come from this that impact our relationships that have nothing to do with the people we know or love. They impact our relationships with strangers because there's this empathy thing for me, that probably for you, that uh, I read the room. I read the room emotionally. I read people emotionally, and that changes their day as because of the way I interact with them, or at least in that moment of their day, because of this internal NDE thing. And I determined that the older man could only see himself. He could only see himself. And it wasn't wicked. It was just blind. He could only see himself. He didn't really see his daughter or granddaughter, didn't really see his wife who had kind of disappeared, didn't really see the woman behind the counter, didn't really see the guy with the box. Could only see himself. And maybe that was the beacon for me. Maybe that was the thing that was most bright, was that his self-absorption seemed to impact all of his relationships all the time. There's an extrasensory perception that comes with NDE, or can anyway. And that impacts how I relate to people in my family life, in my friendship life, and the strangers in the post office life. My relationship to everybody, your relationship to everybody, when a person changes psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, we talked about physicality last week, it impacts every single relationship. And I don't know about you, but I couldn't not be this way. I couldn't not be this new person. There was no choice on this side of the veil. There was definitely a choice on the other side of the veil, but on this side of the veil, I had no idea that what I was getting into when I made that choice on the other side. And so then we try to navigate all our relationships, and it's not easy. And the secret that I found to navigating these relationships, I guess it was twofold. One, I wore a figurative mask for years. I like in this circumstance with these people, I didn't say a single word. Right? I didn't talk to them. I just behaved and motioned. I used my hands to motion and my face to express, my head to shake, saying, "I'm going to stay right here. Let you guys go in." But I didn't talk to them, because it can communicate this without language through this being of service in this small way. I was of service to them, and it's not a big deal. I'm not trying to blow it up for, look at this thing. All I'm saying is that as we go through our daily lives out in the world, as we do unto others as we want them to do unto us, as we treat them with kindness and compassion, well, that accrues to us. It's a practice of prayer. It accrues to us not because we want the accrual, not because we're looking for the reward, because this is not transactional. This is seeing the other person, seeing them with the heart. And over the years of meditative practice, yoga practice, this capacity for seeing others grows through the practice of interior stepping aside, non-attachment, and the non-attachment practice on the outside, the prayer life, kindness, living, action on the outside of life, like in the world is what I mean, outside of myself, in the world is, well, it feeds come back in. So one feeds the other. The more I practice interiorly, the more I practice externally. And it just keeps feeding it feeds me by subtracting me. The more I'm subtracted, the more I'm fed by the divine light. And definitely there were times when I came back that I'd rather would have been blind and not be alienated because of I had this like 5 sense synesthesia. We're seeing and smelling and hearing and tasting, and all were one thing, one perception of the world. And that's kind of what happened in the post office. I saw, I heard, I felt, I understood. But there was this long period of my life when I started losing friends and found myself disrupting my family structure, that I rather would have been blind. But I'm glad that I'm not. I'm glad that we're not. Because the world needs us. It needs us. It needs us to nudge it toward love and kindness, especially nowadays. All right. Let's see what's over there. I've got about 10 minutes. Who didn't I say hi to? I didn't. Hi, Holly, Daryl, Christina, Jen. Make sure to hit the like button. Thanks. The forms. I had this experience and saw the truth, and now connecting with regular people is nearly impossible. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, now what? Yeah. I just want to go back to that dimension. Of course, you. It's a complicated thing, but here's the kernel of it: is that experience that you had is an opening doorway for the presence of it in your life. It won't be the same here, and you will go back there when you die. The more than what you experienced, much more, and because it's infinite, it's infinite depth. The desire for it is a motivator for action in the world, but also for action interiorly. Let your desire for it drive your interior practice, because it's there that you're going to find ease of access, and in practicing in the world, being of service. It's not just me saying this. I've been practicing this for 40 years, both of these things, but it's the ancient literature. I came back with understanding this, but it was when I found it in the ancient literature that I began to understand its effectiveness. It's effective. I totally hear you. You're in the right place too, the forums, and you might want to come to Mystic Tea Salon after this at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Find the link in the description, because this is where people gather for conversations about spiritual transformation. We're a community that's welcoming. And these are our little rules: humility, compassion, kindness, authenticity, and experience. And you don't have to say anything if you want to come, but you're welcome. Hope to see you there at the forum. These are bright shiners. Oh man, Peter, this is absolutely true. I can tell when folks can see past the social mask I put on. Yeah. One of the things, I was talking to one of my buddies, NDE buddies, I came back with a BS meter. That's part of it. Is I have a BS meter, and it's just like, I'm not trying to have a BS meter. It's just that I can see the veil. I can see that the light is dimmed, and it's uncomfortable for people sometimes when that happens, when you're perceiving them, and they don't want to be seen. Yeah. And sometimes it causes a scene when that happens. I had this thing happen a couple weeks ago where it caused a little bit of a scene, because I said something like, never mind. I just said something, and suddenly the fragile ego of this person, and I wasn't saying anything negative. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? I didn't realize you're connected to these people. And that person got insulted because I had forgotten that they was connected to these people, and I hadn't seen them in 5 years. It was, I kind of, and when the response came, how rude, I explained that it's not rudeness. But I could see his fragile ego, and so I soothed him. I didn't confront him. I soothed him. I saw that his heart was broken somehow. His attachment to his self-understanding wasn't there. And so instead of, getting PO'd, I soothed him. I placated him, quieted him down. It hurt me not at all, because it wasn't true. So I didn't attach to that. So it's unmasking the other person, or seeing through the mask can be upsetting for them, because then he's been avoiding me because I saw through him, and he's feeling embarrassed. And I let him know that I saw through him, but I didn't do it in a hard way. All right, so we only have about 5 minutes here, and I'm going to take 4 of those minutes to get ready. Thanks for being here live. I didn't get through all the comments because I was talking too much. Hi, Hilde. With both OEB and STE, new things that align is slowly opening up. As new doors open, many doors are closed. I have turned 180 degrees. My boyfriend gives me freedom to do these things. He did not want to listen. Yeah, that's kind of, my wife gives me freedom to do these things. That's why we're still married. Yeah, 180-degree switch. That's a big switch. That's what it feels like. Hey, Big Gaz, now I tell them everything to make sure we never live like this again. Keep speaking it. Keep speaking it. Hey, Walt, hi from Montana. Just got in. Very synchronistic. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Brother Ed, be still and know. That's the thing. That's the secret. Be still and know. Hey, Kate, Rev Kate. I feel everything. I know my friends are upset with me and never said anything. Big Gaz, yes, he did. You know that they're upset. I'm really glad you brought that up. You know they're upset. You can feel their upsetness, whether it's sadness or anger or some mix of these emotions. You can feel it coming off them, and they say no, no, no. I'm good, and you're like, no, you're not. Yeah, I can feel it. And the more a person insists, sometimes the greater the barrier becomes. What are you going to do? But you can't, I feel you, baby. I feel you. When I said I feel you in my little essay, that's what I was talking about. I feel you. Do you feel me? I feel you. Brian, hi. I'm still doing BS myself, but at least I know fully I'm doing it when I'm in the act of doing it. That's important to know. And knowing I've done it after, yet it's still not great as it is. But that's a huge step, Brian. You unmask yourself. That's one of the things that happen in NDE, OBEs, SDEs. You unmask yourself, and then you see how you behave in the world. And I was instantly on, but it didn't. I had to learn, like you, where my wounds were. When I learned to understand where my wounds were, then I stopped being, or I slowed down, because it still comes out because I'm a freaking human being. My awareness of my own BS became apparent pretty quickly. All right. You're welcome. The forums. You're crying. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. We will go there when we all die. You will. And it is motivation to do good and feel a need to wake up others. Remember this about waking up others, though, is that it's not your job. You can help them. You can present to them. You can be present for them, but you can't make the horse drink the water. You can bring it to the horse, but you can't make them drink. That's the divine's job. But shining the light, bringing the truth, absolutely. And that's helping them wake up. And I'm into that. Shenanigan, it's hard coming back, and I don't want to be here anymore. Hey, if you want to talk about that, I had suicidality for freaking decades. If you want to be here anymore, give me a shout out. We can talk. I know how you feel. Yeah, it's really that hard, everybody. So people who haven't had NDEs, it's really as hard as Shenanigans saying. It's hard coming back, and I don't want to be here anymore. And maybe, people who have suicidality, they understand what that is. They don't want to be here anymore. So it doesn't take an NDE to have that either. All right, I should go. We'll end up with, what do we get? We can't wake up everyone, but we are the personification that love is in the world, and we can be another way that love expresses itself here. Absolutely. You become the channel of peace. All right, so I went over that. I said, peace and love. Thanks for being here. I'll see you at Mystic Tea Salon. Check out the link in the description. Love to you all. See you soon. Thanks for being here. And you recorded people too. I forgot to mention you. You guys do.